In 541 AD, a plague arrived in Egypt. Within 4 months, it reached Constantinople. 10,000 people died per day. The living could not bury the dead fast enough. They cut the roofs off the city's defensive towers and packed the bodies inside. Then it stopped. No cure, no treatment, no explanation. 1,377 years later, a soldier in Kansas walked into a military infirmary with a fever. By noon, 107 soldiers had the same symptoms. Within 8 months, 100 million people were dead. Then it stopped. Same absence of answers. Different century. 2 pandemics. 14 centuries apart. Different pathogens. Different worlds. Scientists have sequenced both of them down to the molecular level, and neither sequence explains the part that should bother you most. Constantinople, 541 AD. The Byzantine Empire at the absolute peak of its power. 500,000 people. The hinge on which the known world turns. Exactly the kind of place that cannot afford to lose what it is about to lose. Then the grain ships come in from Egypt. 1918. 4 years into a war that has already killed 17 million people. Soldiers packed into barracks and troop ships across every continent. The world has never been more connected or more stressed. Both worlds sitting on a breaking point. All they needed was a spark. It begins at the port of Pelusium, Egypt, spring of 541 AD. The historian Procopius is there to document it. Sudden fever, swelling behind the ears, the armpits, the groin, blackening of the skin, death in most cases within 5 days. What Procopius is describing is Yersinia pestis, bubonic plague. From Pelusium it follows the grain ships north, Alexandria, Antioch, Constantinople. Between 1/4 of Constantinople's population dies. The emperor himself contracts the disease. The city is effectively ungoverned for weeks. When the graves fill, officers cut the roofs off the city's defensive towers and pack the bodies inside. Towers full of corpses. The plague moves through Britain, Ireland, Persia. It does not distinguish between enemies. The total death toll, between 25 and 50 million people. In a global population of roughly 200 million, that is 1 in 4 human beings alive at the time. It returns 8 times over the next 2 centuries. And then after 750 AD, the chronicle entries stop. No physician explained what ended it. No intervention stopped it. It simply ceased. The Byzantine Empire never fully recovers. Most accounts file this away under Byzantine history, a catastrophe, an old one, remote. But look at what actually happened, not the label, the event itself. Because 1,377 years later, something structurally identical unfolds. Different continent, different world, different pathogen, same shape. The name is wrong to begin with. The 1918 flu did not originate in Spain. Spain was neutral in the First World War and reported the outbreak openly. Britain, France, Germany, and the United States were concealing it. Spain told the truth. Spain got the name. It infected 500 million people, 1/3 of the world's entire population. It killed between 50 and 100 million of them, more than both world wars combined. We still do not know the precise count. 3 waves, the first mild, the second in the fall of 1918, catastrophic in a way the first gave absolutely no warning of. By the summer of 1919, it was over. But there is something about how it killed that has never been explained. Flu kills the very young and the very old. Healthy adults in their prime survive. That is how flu has always worked. The 1918 flu killed young adults between 20 and 40 at rates higher than any other group. Soldiers in peak physical condition. The healthiest people alive. They died faster than the elderly. And then there is what it did geographically. American Samoa, placed under quarantine, recorded 0 deaths. Western Samoa, 15 miles away, lost 22% of its entire population. Breivik Mission in Alaska lost 72% of its adult population in 5 days. A comparable village nearby recorded no deaths at all. No researcher has ever produced a satisfying explanation for why. By the summer of 1919, it was over. Not because of a vaccine, not because of a cure. It retreated on its own schedule. The question of why it stopped has never been satisfactorily answered. Here is what no one can explain. The Justinianic Plague moves through the most connected empire on earth, and Procopius records communities in its direct path that record no deaths at all. Not fewer deaths, none. The plague moves through them like they are not there. The 1918 flu does the same thing 14 centuries later. Breivik Mission, Western Samoa, the unnamed Alaskan village beside the devastated one. We can name the places. We can count the dead on both sides of the line. We cannot explain what determined which side you were on. And then the endings. The Justinianic strain vanishes entirely after 750 AD, confirmed by ancient DNA research in 2013. Simply gone. Bacterial strains do not go extinct because hosts develop immunity. They mutate. They find new hosts. They persist. This one did not. The 1918 flu does something stranger. It domesticates itself. The strain that killed 100 million people folds into the background and becomes the seasonal flu. No vaccine caused this. It changed on its own schedule. Both reach a point and stop. Not at 0. Not at collapse. At a number that always somehow leaves enough behind to rebuild, as if it got what it came for. Here is what makes this more than ancient history. The H1N1 strain from 1918 came back in 2009. 100 years of medical advancement, global surveillance networks, rapid antiviral pipelines. It still ran its own course, stopped on its own schedule. Then COVID-19, different pathogen, same architecture. Tens of millions dead. Vaccines deployed in under a year, the fastest in human history. The pandemic still ran 3 years and stopped when it reached whatever point it was moving toward. Endemic, the scientific word for still here but no longer catastrophic. Exactly what the 1918 flu did. Exactly what the Justinianic Plague did before it vanished entirely. 3 pandemics, 15 centuries between the first and the last. The same shape every time. Historians call the Justinianic Plague a cause of the fall of the Byzantine Empire. Epidemiologists call the 1918 flu the most lethal pandemic in recorded history. The people it happened to called it the end of the world. And here is where every explanation breaks down. Every model tells you how these diseases spread. None of them tell you why they stopped. None of them explain why certain communities were untouched. None of them explain why the Justinianic strain vanished rather than mutated, or why the 1918 strain domesticated itself rather than kept killing. Something finds a civilization at its most dense, its most connected, its most overextended. Something moves through it like it knows the way. And when it's done, it's just done. No one stopped it. No one cured it. No one cast it out. It left on its own terms. I am not saying a God is doing this. I am saying something older than that idea and harder to dismiss keeps surfacing when you look at this pattern long enough. Not a mind, not a will. Something more like a property of the system itself. The way a forest fire clears dead wood, not because it intends to, but because that is what fire does when the conditions are right. The way any living system that grows beyond what its environment can sustain will be corrected, because that is what living systems do. A correction without a corrector, a pruning without a gardener. something that wears the face of biology but operates on a logic we do not have instruments to measure. We did not stop the plague of Justinian. We did not stop the Spanish flu. We did not stop COVID. They all stopped themselves, on their own terms, at their own number. And the world left behind each time was smaller and quieter and had more room. The global population today is 8 billion people, the highest it has ever been. The most connected, the most dense, the most overextended it has ever been. If this pattern is what it looks like, and it has looked like this for 2,500 years, then whatever this thing is, it has never had more to work with. And we will not know it has started again until it already has.